Hello there, welcome to Community Forum. My name is Roy Cohen and I will be hosting today's show, which I hope that you'll be watching right up to the end because we're going to be filling you up with very important information that could affect you, your lifestyle, your finances. With me today I have Deputy Chief of the Stoughton Police Department, Brian Holmes. Welcome to the show, Brian.
Thank you, Roy. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you on, and hopefully you're going to help us fill in the blanks about scams and stuff like that. But first of all, why don't we have a little introduction about yourself? Tell those who don't know you about yourself, how long you've been on the department, etc.
Okay, I've been on the department since 1997. I was hired as a civilian dispatcher. I was sworn as a patrol officer in 1999. I've been around public safety since I was about age 20. I worked part-time police, fire, and dispatch in the town where I grew up. I needed to find a busier town to work in, and I made Stoughton my home in 1998, and I've been there since.
And you found it to be a busy town?
Just a little bit.
A little bit busy. Along that line of subject, what changes have you seen within the department in your years in service? I think that I can listen to this with great interest because I've been here for over 50 years and I've seen changes. But what changes have you seen?
I was drawn to the Stoughton Police Department because of my time there as a dispatcher. I really liked the cohesion and the men and women and how they worked together in that department at the time. So it's part of the reason that I made it my choice to work in Stoughton. The changes that I think have happened, well, we moved into the building that we're in right now in 1998. We kind of outgrew it the day we moved into it. The current Board of Selectmen is actually looking at a feasibility study to figure out what the needs are for both the police and fire service in this town and the needs for the future of their facilities. That's a change that you may see happen over the next few years. For the department, go ahead, sorry.
You're talking about public service possibility?
Talking about a public safety building or something to fix the firehouse and address some of the needs for the building at the police department. Because we're maximized on space, we're maximized on locker room space, evidence storage, and things like that. So right now, the chief is currently working with the Board of Selectmen, the town manager, and an architect to figure out the needs on the police side of solving this problem. And I know that the fire chief is going to be working with the same architectural firm to figure out either to renovate Freeman Street or replace it or do a public safety building. So I think the Board of Selectmen, if I understood the whole process correctly, will have more than one choice at the end of this feasibility study. Plan A, a public safety building, or Plan B, fix both buildings. So that's one of the changes that I saw immediately is we worked in the Armory for 1 year, and then a year later we moved into 26 Rose Street to the new building.
What's your opinion about that? Should they do a public service building?
To be honest with you, it doesn't matter to me one way or the other. I want to see what works best and what's most economically feasible to this town, because we are on the heels of a $123 million Stoughton High School, a lot of which was funded by Mass School Building Authority, but the taxpayers are paying that down on a debt exclusion. So whatever has to be done with some deference and consideration to what the taxpayers are going to have to eat for their bill. So it doesn't matter to me if it's a public safety building or if there's a renovation or something to address the needs that we have with the police station. I think what the board is trying to do is fix the problem, period. Whether it's one choice or the other, I really don't have a dog in that fight. I just want to see the problem fixed. Other changes?
What changes have you seen within the town in your years?
The town has changed dramatically, I think. 1997 was when I came here, and I saw a lot of proactive calls, a lot of police-initiated activity. The men and women of the department doing the job so that they could try to get ahead of crime. And I think, in a general sense, we've become more of a reactive department because we're just struggling to keep up with the calls for service that come in. I think the town over the last 5 years or so has begun to recognize the staffing needs for the police because we were really in a deep hole. So the chief has been allowed to create incremental growth over the last couple of years to get the staffing up to where it needs to be. And the chief and I are going to continue to work with the town manager and the elected officials to figure out what the end point of that is and where we need to be. Some of the changes that we see, the region is affected by the opioid crisis. So we see the opiate crisis is conflated by the issue of mental health. So you're seeing a lot of programs out there that will first treat through detox, and then they'll have treatment for substance abuse counseling where they address some of the mental health issues. Mental health is playing a component into a lot of the calls that we deal with. And I have no specific explanation about why mental health has become so prevalent for American policing, but it's a growing problem where we have people that have mental health issues that we're seeing them as people that are becoming more frequently seen by the police, and we have to address those mental health issues in the street. You know, I just think that there's a lot of good changes happening in this town, both at the government level and at the service level through the police and fire service and other agencies in this town. So the vitriolic and dangerous nature of the calls that the police are encountering, not just here in Stoughton, but in Massachusetts, it's dangerous. So the types of calls that we're going on now, it's become more dangerous. We've seen a small uptick in the seizure of firearms, illegally possessed, and things like that. So the town is changing, but what I like about working for the police department is that the men and women who serve right now, they make it difficult to ever want to work with anyone else. There's a great group of people coming in. There's a younger workforce. They're very eager to learn the job. They're very eager to get out there and proactively police. So a lot of changes going on. In the department, there's been some changes where we're professionalized, we're accredited. Some of these changes started to take place back in probably about 2008, 2009. And what we do is, one of the things that we do for our staffing is we really front load the background checks on who it is we're allowing to come into the building. So if you're coming in as a candidate, there's a very arduous and extensive background check process because we want to make sure that the people that are coming in are people that we can trust and people that have a clean history, or if there's anything in their background that we would not want to know about it at an oral interview panel, that it comes out and we get the appropriate explanations. So a lot of changes going on.
A lot of changes. I remember when I used to recognize the various police officers. No longer the case.
Well, we brought 3 of them back just to make you feel at home. You know, we allow our retirees to work now. So there was a special act of legislation that had to pass so that when you retire in good standing from the police department, you can work police details doing traffic, and so they're around.
That's why they're out there working the square and other locations.
Right.
I'm saying these guys look familiar. I thought they went away.
They did, and then they came back.
And then they came back. They loved it that much.
Yep.
They heard that you were second in command and they wanted to work for you.
Something like that.
Something like that, that's for sure. Brian, this is also, before we get into the sub-scams, I noticed a little bit of work going on between the center of town up to Sumner Street.
Yep.
Can you talk about that at all?
Yes, so the Sumner Street stretch is being redesigned. The trend for traffic studies and engineering is actually not to speed up and make more efficient the flow of traffic. The trend for engineering and all that is to slow it down for traffic and pedestrian safety. So, like you notice if you drive through Canton Center at traffic time, it's really backed up because the engineering trend is to slow traffic down by narrowing streets and doing things that'll slow traffic down. So what happens when you file a long series of complaints, so there's a problem area, is that you'll have the town engineer working with the Board of Selectmen and working with Old Colony Planning Council to first study it, and then they'll compare it to, you know, worst rated intersections in the Commonwealth, and they'll come up with like a design plan. So the stretch between the center and Sumner Street is designed so that Sumner Street is now slowing down when you take that little off-ramp. You can't take that anymore because that's been eliminated. You actually have to swing a little bit out, and you're forced to slow down when you take that right turn. So there's actually a little bit of a pitch in the road when you actually take the turn, so you can't take it fast, or you're going to lose control of your vehicle. So that's going on, and then...
Are they going to build another island at that point?
At what point?
At the point at Sumner and Park Street?
Yeah, it's going to be extended out.
There used to be an island there.
That island was designed to support the off-ramp.
Right.
Off-ramp, if you want to call it that, but that off-ramp's been eliminated, so you're going to see green space.
Okay.
Yep.
Very good.
So then the center, the work that's being done there is a redo of some of the sidewalks, and there's more engineering, again, to narrow the road, to slow traffic down, make it safe for pedestrians and all that. The last one that they redid over there now puts an alerting signal for pedestrians crossing, where you push a preemptive button and then you get the yellow flash to alert the drivers in the center that a person is going to be crossing the road. So I've noticed just through my own experience that that's made a huge difference in slowing traffic down and having people alert to a pedestrian crossing. So, and that's going to extend all the way up to the 600 block of Washington Street with the redo of that. And I think it's going to go down Washington Street southbound as part of that project.
It's called Progress.
It is.
And safety.
Yes.
Excellent, very good. Okay, now subject number 2, now that we've found out who you are. And again, we welcome you to the show and
Thank you.
with your information. Usually if you're listening to the news or reading in the newspaper, you're going to read about scams taking place, about the elderly being victimized by people who call up and give you all kinds of false information, like your grandson was arrested, we need to get $2,000 from you to bail him out, and just scare everybody into doing things like getting store cards or whatever you call them, gift cards, and sending them off to some obscure location. Can we quickly describe what a scam is?
So a scam is anything that's designed to exploit your personal information and your financial information for a criminal purpose.
Okay, it comes in many forms according to what I have here. And like you said, all of them are designed to get a hold of your money and hurt you. They get you to reveal your personal details, stealing your information, or even getting you to willingly hand over the cash. I think I heard a story the other day of a woman who went and got her gift card, but she was a little leery about it, and I guess she went to the police department and they told her, hold on to it, don't do it, and I don't know what the end result of that was going to be. I guess the key is knowing how to recognize a scam to protect yourself and what to do if you think you've been targeted or fallen victim. Types of scams, we have a list of, they vary from people coming to your front door to an unexpected phone call. The internet advances in digital communication have opened other ways for scammers to target you and to steal information. Chances are, many of you, including myself, we got the information, I think it was an email or a phone call from a fictitious person in Nigeria who came across your name in a file. You're about to win millions of dollars, but you have to get them, you have to send them $100,000 or whatever it is to protect that so you don't lose it.
Oh yeah, it's the auspices of that scam is advanced taxes. You want $1 million, but we need you to pay $2,000 US dollars up front, and people fall into that trap.
Yeah, and unfortunately lose some of their money.
Yep.
To recognize a scam, there's unsolicited or unexpected contact. If you've received any kind of contact, but particularly a phone call out of the blue, it's best to avoid it, correct?
Yep.
Since January of 2019, there has been a ban on cold calling about pensions. In other words, the government is stepping in and stopping these types of calls, which basically means you shouldn't be contacted by any company about your pension unless you ask them for it. Your email address, if you get an email, expand the pane at the top of the message and see exactly who it came from. If it's a scam, the email address the message has come from will be filled in with random numbers or will be misspelled. If it sounds too good to be true, it is.
Probably is.
It is. This is something for you that you normally find with pensions or investment scams, where the fraudster guarantees you huge returns, but tells you it's a low risk. In other words, you don't have to worry, just take part of it. Personal details, PIN codes, passwords, these are things that no legitimate company will ask you for. The scammers will. Hopefully you'll give it to them. And then if you're pushed, as many of them will do, to make a quick decision on the spot, be suspicious. Scammers don't want you to think about it and give you time to do that. And then random competitions, particularly if you don't remember entering them, should ring alarm bells. If you look it up on the internet, you'll find that there's a list of things that you should be aware of, you should look for. Scammers can hijack your phone lines. I mean, it's electronically. You got to really watch out and you got to protect yourself.
Yep.
If you think you're being targeted, hang it up. Wait 5 minutes and then call your bank directly. Find out more of what you can do to stop fraud on the Take 5 website. You look that up. Next step to avoiding scams is to know how to protect yourself. While some of these are good advice in general, many are aimed at keeping you safe online. Avoid any unexpected contact. Any phone calls, letters, emails, or people knocking on your door should be ignored. Let the dog respond with barking like crazy because there's some stranger there. Never, never give out personal information. We agree on that?
We do.
This can be used to steal your identity and access accounts. Keep your operating system and your virus protection software up to date. Don't ignore updates, as these can often include patches to protect against new kinds of scams. I guess everybody's trying to figure out a way to get beyond whatever's available now. Viruses and ransomware. This goes for mobile devices as well. Make sure that all your accounts have strong passwords. Don't use the same password for multiple accounts and change them regularly. You do that?
I do. I have a long list of passwords that's growing for each different access, but change them frequently. That's common sense. That's a good tip.
What about advance payments?
Advance payments, you're talking about if somebody calls and asks you for an advance payment.
Yeah, make sure that
your radar should be going off.
Yeah, make sure the company you're dealing with is legitimate. Yep. If you're not sure about a financial services company, check the FCA register. And if they're not on it, don't have anything to do with them. And if you're not sure about any other kind of company, you can look them up. Look online and hopefully you'll find them or you won't find them. Use safe and secure Wi-Fi connections. If you're out on the road, avoid public Wi-Fi. They're usually not more secure than the one, or they're often more secure. Your standard 3G or 4G connection is often more secure than the ones in the coffee shop or the restaurant. It's like you got to be careful when you go into a gas station and you plug into your card. They have a simple thing called skimmers.
Yep.
I think that will read your information, and you don't know about them until they get you. Make sure the websites you're using are secure. Check to see if the web address starts with HTTPS and not just HTTP. And sign up for a call blocking service, like the telephone preference service. This might not stop all the scam calls as they operate outside legal guidelines, but it will stop cold callers. That means any suspicious or unexpected calls you do receive are almost certainly from people you don't want to deal with, and so on. If you've been the victim of a scam, call the police.
Yep.
Okay, and stop sending money straight away. If the payment has been set up as a direct debit, get in touch with your bank to stop this immediately. Report the scam to Action Fraud, and then there's a phone number in there, or there's a website. Beware of follow-up scams. Sometimes after reporting a scam, you might get targeted again by a fraudster who says they can get you your money back. And check your credit file. I do that frequently. You go on there, check your credit file, and check it monthly for credit applications done by a fraudster. If they have your information, they're going to start opening up accounts in your name.
Yep.
And stuff like that. See if there are applications for credit you don't recognize, or if you have a CIFIS marker. I'm not sure what that is, but a CIFIS marker on your file. If your bank believes you've been a victim of fraud, you could put a CIFIS victim of impersonation note on your account. What it does is it warns lenders that you've been a victim or are vulnerable to becoming a victim of fraud. If you think you've been targeted by a scam, you should also report it so it can be investigated. You can do this through a Financial Conduct Authority website using their reporting what's the word I'm trying to think of? Well, anyways, so that's how you, a scam can come in many forms. They get you to reveal your personal data. stealing your information, or even getting you to willingly hand over the cash. The key is to recognize a scam. Protect yourself and what you think you've been targeted or have fallen victim. How to protect yourself against scams, and I think we've got into that. One of the most important things that I found in doing the research is at the end, don't throw away papers in the trash that are loaded with your personal information. Use a shredder.
Absolutely.
And if you don't have a shredder, maybe there's people that they have shredding parties, believe it or not, where they all get together and shred this stuff together. And then you got the thing about how do scammers know so much about me? This is very important. They're good at sleuths, but too often we give our data away. One of the things they talk about is entering contests.
Yep.
What are the people doing with that? They fill out forms with all the details that they need. Online contests are gateways to unwanted sales pitches. Not only do marketeers collect information like name, age, and address, they may learn other things, that you like to travel or buying a car, and they also know that you believe in luck, and that could make you a target. Mailing in warranty cards. Whenever you fill out a warranty card for a toaster or whatever, it requests information like how much money you make. It's likely that your information is being sold to others. If you send a check to a charity, all of a sudden you're inundated with other charities that are coming after you, and I just find that very frustrating. Filling out surveys. If you recently filled out a questionnaire rating your stay at a hotel or service at a restaurant, selling survey data is big business, and marketing firms and even criminals can learn a lot about you based on travel preferences and what type of home you own or what kind of car you drive. Sharing information on Facebook.
Yep.
What about that?
So there's a Facebook scam out there right now where if I have a Facebook friend that has their account hacked, they'll send a Facebook message out that says, hey, it'll be in Facebook Messenger, but it says, hey, I saw you in this video or something. So you'll click on the link and it'll say, please log on with your username and password to Facebook. And it's a redundant logon. And what it's trying to do is it's trying to get and trap your username and password. The email message is the actual scam, and when you give the information, you're granting access to a scammer to get all of your access to your Facebook and whatever information that they can get while they're out there trawling the internet. Mm-hmm. There's a whole lot that you said that we could unpack. There's a lot of stuff to cover, but one of the first things that jumps out at me is when you check your regular mail in your mailbox every day, you gotta check these things that you could quickly dismiss as a solicitation, because I caught one that was in my mother's name while she was in a nursing home, and it was a bill, and she had, like I did all my mother's bills and everything, and it was a bill from PayPal, and my mother did not have a PayPal account. I knew every single bill that she had because I was her power of attorney prior to her passing, and I looked at the bill, so I had to have one of the people in my own department do a larceny report because she had been scammed for about $2,500. Mm-hmm. But how does that information get compromised is that, she was in a nursing home and there's a binder with her patient information, and in that is somewhere is the social security number and the date of birth and things that could be used as identifiable information. In her case, somebody took the information and they sold it to a scammer in Texas, and that individual opened up a PayPal account and rung up $2,500 worth of online purchases. So nobody was held financially responsible in my family or my mother's account or anything because it was theft. And you'll find that 99 times out of 100, the credit holder is not going to hold the client accountable for money that they've been ripped off out of. These credit companies, they have literally billions in write-offs every year for stolen accounts or compromised funds or whatever, and they a lot of them don't even have much of an interest unless it reaches a certain a dollar amount that's in the thousands about recovering money and having criminal charges filed, unfortunately. In the case of my my mother. We identified the person. The person lived in Texas. Typically, unless there's a very large dollar amount attached to it, the county prosecutor is not going to recommend rendition or charging the person with the crime and bringing them back to the state. But so the point of all that is just pay attention to your mail and don't dismiss things as solicitations or junk mail. What you have to look at is you have to look at things that you've never seen before. And when you see these credit card solicitations that, like you had just said, you don't want to throw them away, you want to shred them. How can that be exploited? Is that if you have somebody picking through your trash and they're looking at your mail, they can complete a credit application in your name, and they simply change the address. And what do? Is they get the actual credit card delivered to the new address. I actually fell victim to that myself. I got a bill from a company that I don't do business with, Wells Fargo Bank, and it said your credit card is ready and available. Somehow by mistake it came to my home address, but the billing address was a California P.O. box, which is, I did some research on, it's known to be an address of scammers, credit card scammers. So you have to pay attention to your basic mail, you have to pay attention to your email. Things that come across the telephone, you need to pay attention to what it is they're asking for. And if the caller is saying, I need you to verify your social security number, you got to have some red flags go off there. The National Grid scam, they'll tell you that National Grid is doing X, Y, and Z. Please hold for an operator. And when you get that operator, one of the first things they ask you is to verify your name and your social security number. Well, if National Grid is calling you and you're their client, you need to think defensively in that is that they should already have your information. But once you give up your social security number, it's just it's a scam.
It's done.
To get your identification to be able to file for credit cards in your name and basically rip you off. So
once you see that they've applied for a credit card in your name, is there anything you can do to stop it?
Yeah, so I mean, you had asked about talking about ways for the elderly to protect themselves.
Correct.
So the best way to be proactive about this, and I got this from one of our detectives, I'd never even heard this before, Detective Danny Barber mentioned to me that the best way to protect yourself if you're a senior is to call up the 3 credit reporting bureaus. You have a graphic on there that you can bring up. But if you call all 3 of the credit reporting bureaus if you're a senior, and you don't expect that you're going to be opening up any credit cards or applying for any loans at any time in the future, then put a lock on your credit. So nobody can even physically open up an account in your name, whether or not they stole your information. So if you actually call all 3 credit reporting bureaus,
there they are right there.
There's a way for you to lock your account, your credit online so that nobody can get into that except for you.
Really?
And that is the most proactive way to protect your credit and to protect yourself from having a credit card opened up in your name.
So the 3 credit companies, TransUnion, and telephone number is 800-916-8800, Equifax, 888-548-7878, or Experian, which is 888-397-3742. I saw an ad on a bus, something about locking and unlocking your credit card.
Yep.
So you can, when you're not going to be using your card, to prevent somebody else from using the numbers, you can freeze your account?
Well, no, I'm talking about freezing your actual credit. So say you apply for a credit card, you want to get, call it United Airlines credit card for bonus Sky Miles, right? You file a credit application. The first thing that credit card company is going to do is they're going to run your credit through one of those 3 agencies. And if your credit report is in and of itself locked, you can't get the credit card.
Okay.
And nobody can get the credit card in your name.
Right.
So that's why the most proactive way to take care of protecting your credit and preventing somebody from getting into your credit report is to just lock all three credit reporting agencies' report of you.
So you can lock it easily and then unlock it if you want to?
Yep.
Well, that seems to be the greatest way to go about protecting yourself.
Yep. It is. It's the only real true way to get ahead of somebody actually opening a credit card in your name, because in order for that creditor to give you credit, they have to be able to access one of those 3 agencies. And if your report is locked, I have mine locked because of being compromised with Wells Fargo Bank, then nobody can open a credit card in your name.
So do you call the credit card company or the bank to lock it?
Nope. You call one of those 3 numbers, so actually all 3 of those numbers, and you report your credit. You lock your credit report at all 3 agencies. So nobody can even open up a card in your name at all.
But can they use the card, or can they make charges on that card?
When you're
talking about locking the credit file.
The credit report,
of the
yeah.
credit report. But what if they have somehow got your credit card information, including the PIN? Can they still make purchases with it?
Yeah, so if you have a pre-existing credit card that somebody has stolen the information on through a skim, and then they somehow got your PIN, which there's a couple of technological ways to get your PIN. I don't want to get into that, but yeah, they can still make fraudulent charges on your account. So there's something out there. There's a Massachusetts legislative act that it's made for fraud and credit reporting. So if you're the victim of a scam where you got ripped off, say $5,000 on your credit card, and just say, for example, you live in Malden, right? You can report to any police agency, particularly in your hometown, that you were the victim of a crime, and the Special Legislative Act allows you to be reporting as a victim of a crime, and that your home police department can take that report and then refer that report to basically any police agency anywhere. The Legislative Act eliminates the dilemma that if you live in Malden and you're the victim of credit fraud and somebody used your credit card in New York City, that you have to report that to New York City because that's the jurisdiction where the crime occurred. The Massachusetts Legislative Act allows us to get around that for victims who are reporting fraud. So we've had this happen where other police agencies didn't understand necessarily that that this legislative act exists, and we've had people from all over basically come to the police department and report, hey, I got ripped off, and they used it at Target in Stoughton, or they used it at Kohl's in Stoughton, but I'm told by my local police department that I have to come here because the crime took place here. It's not the case, it's a misunderstanding. The Massachusetts legislature made it easier for the victims to report themselves as a victim of a fraud crime, so that they just report it to their local agency, and then they forward that report to their creditor, and their creditor can actually take through their own corporate fraud department, take action to investigate those crimes.
Another thing that I noticed in doing my research for this show is that, and I see this a lot, is people who are out there traveling report where they are. I'm at Disneyland, or my family is here or there and every place else, which to me tells whoever wants to break into your house there's nobody home because they're in Disneyland.
Safest thing to do is post the pictures when you come back from vacation.
This is where I was.
Yeah, this is where I was. Great vacation. I'll post them the day before you come back, knowing that you're friendly with your next door neighbor, and you've asked that next door neighbor, hey, we're going, but watch the house for me and take out the trash on Thursday or whatever. Don't post the pictures while you're away, particularly if you're further away, because you might be alerting somebody in your list of friends that maybe you don't know so well, and maybe they're looking for the opportunity to break into your house. So my recommendation is that you don't post anything until you're back, because it's what I do, and it seems to work for me.
You see commercials with that, what is that, Ring?
Yep.
With the TV camera in your bell?
Yep.
How does that work?
To me, that's a really proactive tool.
A deterrent?
Not much. Maybe it's a deterrent, but it gives you peace of mind to know that you know who's at your door wherever you are. And what I like the feature that allows you to talk back through the Ring system, because if somebody's at the door and they're trying to scam you or whatever, you can scam them right back saying, oh yeah, I just get out, I'll be right down, such and such will be there in a minute. Oh, you know what, I'm not interested, you should leave. You can scam them right back. I actually, the long list of scams that I brought to talk to you about, and hopefully we'll have time, but I keep getting the Microsoft scam. I am calling from Microsoft, you have a virus on your computer. That's the opener. Are you in front of your computer? And what's the trap? The trap is to get you to give remote access to somebody that's halfway around the world that's going to hold your computer, freeze it up, and going to hold it hostage until you pay them $1,500, $2,000, $3,000 to get control of your computer back. So the first couple times I got the call, I just ignored it. Then I just keep getting them and getting them and getting them. So you know what? I did some research and I found out that the people that work in these boilerplate factories are paid per scam. So if you're working there and you trap a guy who's in San Diego, California, you got him and you got his computer, well, your commission that day is a certain percentage of the take. So how do you counter that? Well, my thing was to keep the guy on the phone as long as possible. So how do you keep him on the phone as long as possible? He goes through all the directions and he's like, press Control Alt R or whatever the commands are to give control of your computer to them. And I'm just like, I'm not even in front of my computer. I was all the way to Home Depot before I got the guy figuring out that I'm just playing games with them. And I had them on the phone for something like 45 minutes. You know, they'll tell you, oh, push this button, push that button. So what did I say back? I said, do I have to turn the power on? I mean, I just kept it going for as long as I could.
Sure.
The danger of playing this game back is what happened here in Stoughton a little over a year ago, is that somebody had their house swatted because she was actually a victim of a crime, and it had to do with one of these scammers. So what do they do for payback? And I'm 99% sure that they did this. They swatted her. They reported something bad happened at her house, and the SWAT team showed up. So you got to be careful with how much you kind of push back and fight against these people that are on the phone. The best thing to do is just to hang up, because once you hang up, it's all over. You don't have to worry about any of that.
What about the companies when you call? Like I occasionally, if I have a problem with my computer, I call Apple, and they say, well, maybe I should come onto your phone or come onto your computer with you.
Yep.
And they have the ability to go around it and show you what to do, but they're controlling the cursor.
I've had that before, but what they do is Apple does authentications.
Yeah.
So what they'll do is they'll send you an email. You know you've called Apple, you've called the correct number. They send you an authentication code that might be like 5 digits or whatever, and they'll say enter the code or read it back, or they might send it to your Apple device, your iPhone or whatever. So you know that you're talking to an Apple customer service representative. It's what you have to be careful of is if you put into the computer, you put in Apple customer service, and you see something that you might think is their customer service number, but it's not, and it's one of these trap companies, then you get to call it by mistake. I mean, they have one out there that it's they're trying to get you to, like, if you had your registration that you needed to renew, and it says renew Massachusetts registration online, and you look at the fee. Well, I know that nearly positive the fee for a registration renewal is $100, right? And you see something that says $35, check the site that you're on, because there's one out there that gets you money every single time. They're really good at getting you money because however they do the search engine or whatever, they come up really high in the search list for renewing your registration online, and you're paying your money to nobody. On Christmas Day 3 years ago, my daughter got an iPhone, and she said, Dad, look at this, Ray-Bans, 50% off. And it came up, and she ordered them online. And my bank had sent me an instant email that said, and actually the customer service sent a call on Christmas Day and said, this is a suspected website where your daughter just bought a pair of sunglasses, and it's in China. Well, Ray-Ban's not in China.
No.
So there's all sorts of scams out there, and the goal is to either trap your information, get you credit, or get you money.
The one thing that bothers me is this last paragraph in this section. It says, I live in the United States. Many public records are available at the federal, state, and county and city levels, including census data, property information, criminal records, bankruptcies, and tax liens. Private companies can pull together all this information on you and sell it to anyone, and it's 100% legal.
So there's certain things in the Massachusetts public record law for the things that we have to deal with where we're required to redact out certain things. Like if you're looking for a certain report, the records clerk knows that she has to redact out Social Security number and date of birth and things like that. There are other ways to trap this information, but it's you give your information to a creditor because you're applying for a credit card, or you enter a lottery or whatever it is. They can now sell that information, and it happens all the time. And then you see breaches of information, like through TJX. There was a big breach several years ago. One of the reporting bureaus had a very big data breach. Because there's people that spend their time doing nothing but hacking computers so that they can get this information and sell it.
Amazing. All right, this is repetitive, but I think it's important. I toss my mail is the heading. Shred all mail that has your name and address, account numbers, or other personal data.
Yep.
And if you don't have a home shredder, save your papers for a neighborhood shredding event.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
You want to sponsor one?
Well, I don't know. I have to
That's not a bad idea.
Talk to my wife about it, but there was actually there was a scam going on at a certain point in time where there was a person or a couple of people that were following around the mail truck because they had stolen mail, returned a credit application, and they got the credit applications approved. And as soon as the mailman would drop the mail, the scammer was behind the mail truck, and he would steal the approved credit card right from the mail. So you got to watch everything. You know?
Sure. They said AARP sponsors these in many communities. I have a feeling Stoughton Police will do it. But it says as a final sentence, messy garbage won't deter a bad guy.
Nope.
They don't care what's in it, as long as they can get that sheet of paper that may have some dirt on it.
Yep.
And get the information off it. Someone in my family has died recently. Obituaries are prime hunting ground for scammers.
Yep.
Who learn the names of vulnerable widows, widowers, children, or grandchildren. Honor the dead, but keep personal information in obituaries to a minimum.
100% agree with that. You know, what happens too is people that like to burglarize or find the need to burglarize because of addiction, they'll look at the obituaries and they'll look at the dates and times of wakes. So that one of the best things you can do is if you have a death in the family and you know that you have a wake or a funeral at a certain date and time, put somebody that you trust in the house. Have them babysit your house, because the people that trawl the waters for this kind of information will target your house. So that's a real thing.
Yeah, I noticed that on the local level at the synagogue, if they have a bar mitzvah coming up,
Yep.
they only put the first name. They don't put the last name down there, because they figure if they have the last name, the scammers or the people who want to break into your house
Yep.
will look you up and see where it is while you're in there celebrating.
Right.
So you have to be careful with what you put out there, information-wise.
Yep.
Okay, you said you have a list of
I've
scams?
got a long list I'll go over in a minute, but I want to go back to the beginning of what you're talking about of protecting your information. I can't emphasize it enough that if somebody calls you and they're asking you for information that they should already have, the red flag should go off. What can you do proactively is you can end the phone call. If you're answering the phone, you're in control. So say it's National Grid and they have somebody scamming in their name right now, and they ask you for information to verify or whatever. Listen, I'm busy right now, I'm going to call you back. Pick up your bill, find the customer service number for that company, and call them back directly. And then the first thing you should be inquiring about is, are you calling right now because of this issue or that issue? And the company will be able to tell you right away. Verizon had one for a while. Verizon has got strong two-factor authentication, PIN numbers, and all these things so that they know that they're talking to the correct person. So what's out there? All right, the DEA scam, that's a good one. I'm calling from the DEA. Do I have Roy Cohen? Yes, you do. Mr. Cohen, we found that you have had illegal drugs shipped to your house. Well, what is this thing driven by? It's driven by your fear. You're talking to the federal government. The federal government's going to come to your house. They'll tell you, if you want to resolve this right now over the phone without going to court and without being charged with a crime, we can allow you to pay a fine of $2,500. So you're going to need to go to the store and you're going to need to get yourself a Visa gift card, and we're going to use that as a means to resolve this. Does it sound a little odd, a little suspect?
Sure it
That's
does.
a real one.
But people do it.
People do it. I had a guy come to the station with his son, and I said, give me the number. And the guy, he had a special agent name, he had a Washington, D.C. area code, he sounded like a Fed, and I asked him for some authentication information through the National Crime Information Center, and he hung up the phone. And I figured out, okay, this guy's a scammer, right? But here's some things. The federal government, the guy was actually saying, we're going to send the county sheriff to your house to arrest you. All right, well, there's a line here where the federal government is going to send a U.S. Marshal working for the federal government to come arrest you, or they're going to come themselves as DEA agents. That ties into the IRS and the Social Security scams. The IRS, I'm calling from the IRS, you owe X amount of dollars. If you don't pay the money that you owe immediately, we're going to send the local police to your house to come and arrest you and bring you to the county court. Okay, there's regional issues here that if you know the criminal justice system, you know that the local government and the county government are not going to serve warrants for the federal government. And they'll say that over the phone. So I've done some pushing back with them. You know, I kind of have my fun with them about, you know, send me the warrant. I want to send it to my lawyer. You know, just that's me. The best thing you can do is hang up. Once you recognize that the IRS is never going to communicate with you by phone, Social Security Administration is never going to communicate with you by phone, and they're calling and they're identifying themselves as Social Security or IRS, phone call should be over before it begins. What else is out there? We talked about Microsoft. Right now, there's a scam going on that targets people that are here on short-term visas. You know, if somebody has a visa and they come from another country, let's just say we'll call it Argentina, and they're here on a student visa, and then all of a sudden they graduate school, but they get a job and they're staying with their neighbor or they're staying with somebody that they trust or family. Your visa has an expiration date on it, and the exploitable information is that somehow people are getting the expirations of these visas, and what they'll do is they'll call whoever it is and say, this is INS, this is Immigration Customs Enforcement, you are here on a visa that's expired, and they'll exploit them with the same thing. They'll drive it off of fear. We're going to come to your house, we're going to arrest you, we'll put you in a federal detention center unless you pay the money. And that's not how it works. Money is never asked for as a resolution to a case until it's adjudicated through the system as a plea agreement or at the very end of a case, and it would have to be inside a courthouse in front of a judge. And we have people that come to this country, and they might be here on an expired visa, or they might be here on some sort of illegal status. They too can be exploited and be the victims of crimes.
A lot of that's going on with ICE.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's happening. It's a real thing, but it's no different than anybody else who comes to the police to report a crime. What do you have when you have that person that's on maybe a illegal status or expired status? Is they're afraid of the guy on the other end of the phone that's saying we're going to come arrest you. So then, why would they go to the local police to report a crime when they're afraid of getting arrested? So we had an incident happen here with the Brazilian community a little over a year and a half ago, and what we ended up having to do is we brought in a large contingent of people from the Brazilian community. It had to do with a guy that was very popular amongst the community, and he was arrested on an actual immigration criminal warrant. So we had to explain to the people that came in, number one, the federal government is over on one side, the local and state government is over on the other. We don't go out and enforce federal law. Number two, even if you're here illegally, we still have an obligation to look at you as a victim of a crime. It's not a thing where the local police are going to enforce federal law and drag you out in front of your family and throw you in an ICE detention center. We don't even have the legal authority to do that. So it was difficult to explain to a lot of the folks that came in that day that there's a very bright line between what's federal and what is state. So what you have is the folks that might be afraid of coming into the local police because they don't understand that there's a divide between federal law and state law because they come from a country that has one law, a national police service. So that's the latest and the greatest scam that's going on. I just heard about that a couple of days ago, that people are being exploited for their immigration status as being on an expired visa. The federal government is not going to ever try to adjudicate something over the telephone and ask you to pay a fine by way of a Visa gift card. It just doesn't happen. Any of these things that are going to be paid for or resolved as a disposition of any kind of a criminal case, a case has a beginning and it has an end, and that payment would be at the end of a criminal case. So there's a lot of people that might not even know that. You had asked about stuff that's designed for crimes against the elderly, and I think it's important for the viewing public to understand that the Norfolk County Sheriff's Department has a program called Triad. The Triad meets quarterly at the Council on Aging. The police department has a good working relationship and partnership with the Council on Aging, and we will participate in anything that they ask us to be a part of, but the Triad has several different components. The next meeting of the Triad is November 18th, and it's going to be at the Stoughton Senior Center at 110 Rockland Street at 11 a.m. And you can contact the number that's on the graphic up there if you want to arrange to try to come in. The Triad group is also forming a tour of the Norfolk County Prison, and that tour will be on October 28th. You'd also have to call the Senior Center, the Council on Aging, to sign up for that trip. So the Triad has several different components, and one of the things that was actually something that the police department used to handle, we just got too busy, it was taken over by the Sheriff's Department, is the Are You OK program. And what it is if you're getting up there in your years and you want somebody to check on you daily, it's an automatic call that we do a well-being, or they do a well-being check through the Sheriff's Department daily just to make sure that you're okay. And if you don't answer the call, the Sheriff's Department will call us to do a well-being check, or they'll send out one of their sheriffs to make sure that the person at the other end of the phone is okay. Another component of the Triad is something called the Files of Life list, so that if there's a medical issue at your house, Stoughton Fire that responds would know exactly where to find your medication list, and it would give patient history and all that kind of thing.
As long as you call the fire department and give them the list.
No, it's in a universal location, so Stoughton Fire knows where to look. But you have to become a member of that program where you're filling out a sheet, and it's the File of Life is in one particular location in the house. But it expedites the transfer of information, particularly if you're in a situation where a family member might not know all this, or you can't talk. Stoughton Fire They do a fantastic job of knowing their clientele and people that might go to the hospital more so than other people that they're not familiar with. So a lot of the guys and ladies on Stoughton Fire, they'll see somebody that they've seen before, and they already kind of have a general knowledge of their history, their medical history that is, but the med list and the history list in the Files of Life is very helpful. There's also another program called the Yellow Dot Program through Triad, and what it is it's very similar to the Files of Life list, but it involves a certain universal location in your motor vehicle. So it's the same information, but it's just applicable to being inside a moving motor vehicle, and that goes with you everywhere. And so what happens is the sheriff sends out one guy who runs the Triad program, and he's here quarterly, and he talks about all of the most current trends and scams that are going on. It's a lot of information, and I think it'd be very helpful for people to have a full understanding of the most contemporary scams, in addition to some of these things that I've just talked about, that the Triad program can offer, particularly for people through the senior center, older folks that might not understand technology and how your information is trolled and scammed and passed along.
Okay. We have some safety tips for seniors.
Okay.
We're just going to quickly get into them because we don't have a lot of time left. One of the points you mentioned was about the phone. If they call and they want to make sure you're okay if you answer it.
Yep.
One of the suggestions we make is that you switch to a cordless phone. If you're one of the originators of the Bell telephone and you have a wire connecting you to the wall, you might want to switch to a cordless phone because that eliminates falls. This way you won't have to get up and rush to answer the phone. It may lead to accidents such as tripping and falling, and it's especially important for those with balance or mobility issues. The next one I'm going to quickly go through, don't display money in wallets openly. Right?
That's just good situational awareness. My dad taught me that way back at a Red Sox game when I was a kid. I started carrying a wallet, and he talked to me about that. He says, don't hold your wallet like out where people can get it. Don't show them how much money you have because then you might become a target of pickpocket.
Sure.
Or robbery.
Or you have a wad of cash and you pull it out to pay a bill or something.
I only have $5 in my pocket, Roy.
There you go.
Just saying.
Well, that's good to know. Consider wearing an alert device. In case you fall, press the button. Someone will come and help you. Very important. Secure your home is another one. And then the one I see here is beware of side effects. On all your medication, it has side effects listed. Be aware of them and make sure you don't do things that could hurt you.
So the second to last one that you talked about, securing your home and making it, when we talk about things that you can do to make your house less appealing to a burglar is, if you go out, sometimes it's not a bad idea just to simply leave the television on or leave a couple different lights on.
Noise.
Or put your lights on a timer. Or if you have the money, if you're in a single family home, rather than have a wood frame door that's just wood frame door alone where the lock snips into the receiver, get that whole section of the door reinforced with steel, because if a piece of wood's just holding the lock and latch plate together where you close your door, it's easy to compromise. So if you have a steel reinforcing behind that frame, it makes the door a lot more difficult to try to get into. And if you make your house less appealing and more difficult to get into, somebody's not going to want to take the time or make the noise or make themselves a target, particularly if they're committing a crime.
Very good.
So I want to talk about one last thing that folks might not be aware of.
Okay.
The emergency management director and the fire chief. The fire chief's Mike Laracy, and the emergency management director is Nick Pirelli. Those two gentlemen have worked together to come up with updates to the Stoughton Emergency Management Agency. If you go on to Stoughton Emergency Management Agency, you can register for alerts. And one of those alerts, you'll either get a text message, a voicemail, or an email, or all three, depending on what you register for. And the Emergency Management Agency is sort of the conduit for the police and fire's version of Reverse 911. The last time that we used Reverse 911 through the fire chief's RAVE program was to send out an alert for a early Alzheimer's patient who had walked away from his house. He was later recovered healthy. It was about 5 hours later. But we had sent that out, that alert, which is a very simple pre-recorded message to let the public know we're looking for this gentleman. But it's really designed for civic emergencies. What if there's a big snowstorm? What if there's something going on that requires a lot of public attention? We can actually send that through the fire chief or Nick Pirelli, the emergency management coordinator. to get the information out there. It could be a snowstorm, it could be a windstorm, it could be a hurricane, it could be anything that's happening.
Emergency, yeah.
But what we do is when you actually go onto that, or you go onto there with the help of maybe a younger person that can navigate you through it if you're older and you have a hard time with technology, is you're registering for alerts from Stoughton Emergency Management that can tell you what's going on. And I think it's important for people to, if they have the ability and access to a computer, to do that. When I say that the police department has a good working relationship with the Council on Aging, I have to shout out to them for their role. We also have a great working relationship, I think, with Stoughton Fire. Mm-hmm. There was a fire at 4 Capon Street, and had it not been for those 3 organizations coming together after the fire did their job, you got to picture it that the whole area is locked down. Mm-hmm. 4 Capon, the fire was extinguished, and now fire is doing their overhaul and making sure that there's no fire spreading anywhere else. You have all those occupants of that facility that you now have to find a place for. And the Council on Aging, 110 Rockland Street, that was sort of the resting point until those folks found a place to go, and
that worked out well.
Yeah, so it's a working relationship. It's a good one, and in that case, the 3 agencies working well together, along with the Housing Authority and their employees, turned a bad situation into one that at least had a temporary resolve.
Which we're thankful for. There was no loss of life or injuries in that.
Nope.
Okay, well, we certainly surpassed the 30 minutes we thought we were going to talk. We thank you very much for the information. It's very informative, and the show is repeated enough where if you want to see it again, it's on every night on local cable and also on the internet. You'll be able to check it out. I want to thank Brian Holmes. He's the Deputy Chief of the Stoughton Police Department for coming on and giving the pitch that he did. I also want to thank Maxie's Deli. We don't have the time to really run through the whole list of sponsors, but Maxie's Deli definitely want to mention with the generous offering of yummy food for the staff and for the guests. I want to thank Michael Hammond, Jeff Pickett, Dave Young, CJ Mullen, and Gina Coe, and Leo McGowan. We hope you're getting better, Leo. Just get better and come on back and watch the show. This is Roy Cohen. I'm saying thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you again.
Thank you again.
Sir.